I want the bits from Betting Weekly because we win. That is our motto. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't win. Don't give us the bird, don't give us your stink eye. We try our best and we're successful. Come watch our show. Red River sponsors. It's time to start. Enjoy the show. Yeah, give me your picks. Give me your insights. I want the bits from Betting Weekly because we win. That is our motto. Sometimes we win. Sometimes we don't win.
Hello everyone, welcome on in. It is Betting Weekly Live. It is Thursday and I am Nigel Seeley and I'm delighted to say joining me, making his debut on Betting Weekly Live is former ESPN betting guru is Doug Kezirian. Doug, good morning to you. I know you're over in Las Vegas. Good morning to you from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah, good to be with you and good morning to you and everyone else tuning in and maybe some late afternoon or late morning, I should say, with some others on the East Coast. It's awesome. I'm fired up, Nigel. Obviously been a fan of your work for a great deal of time, and it's good to join you and everyone else here in the chat and, get the new year started off on the right foot.
Well, the members of the Nigel Seeley fan club will be very happy that you've joined. There's only two members at the moment, my mother and my wife. So thank you very much for making the third. We'll send you the welcome pack very shortly. But the weather over here in the UK, we're going to start off with a little bit of soccer action as we do on the show every week. And the weather over here in the UK is absolutely freezing. It's Baltic across the country. There is snow falling all across the country, north of the country, south of the country. It's very, very poor condition tonight for the soccer action. But I suppose it's very, very different from the conditions I'm finding there over in Las Vegas. What's it like over there, Doug?
Well, it's desert weather, so you're always going to have the extremes. We are all too familiar with the heat in the summer, but in the winter, it can get pretty cold, particularly at night. But it's really windy of late the last few days. Obviously, our eyes are keeping an eye on everything in California, and that's where I'm from, Los Angeles. So too many friends that are affected by the fires and the dangerous situation going on right now out there. So. But we do have winds out here. It's been really windy lately, but all that matters is the weather inside the sports books, right?
Yeah, well, hopefully anybody's watching over here on the over in California, hopefully you're all safe and well. And thoughts for anybody who's caught up in that tragedy, what we're watching involving on our television screens around the world at this moment in time. If you've got any comments to put in for myself or Doug, any questions, any bets you want to have, any tips you like for the night, put it in the comments box on the right. The comments are coming in fast and furious already. Just the show, we're going to cover the soccer, as we said. We're going to look at the Super Bowl action. It's a big, big weekend of wildcard weekend matches. There's specials from Bet Rivers, as well as the tennis. It's the WTA and the ATP Tour semi-finals in the final build-up towards the weekend Australian Open that starts every on Monday. Okay, without further ado, let's have a look at the betting action. We're going to start off with the FA Cup. Now, Doug, I don't know if you're really a soccer bettor, but the FA Cup is probably the most famous cup competition in soccer betting that there is. It's been involved for 154 years, this competition, and it's all the teams across England who play in a cup competition. You're drawn out of a hat and you don't know who you play. You could be a minnow and play one of the big boys. That makes this cup a very, very historic thing. And, traditionally it's a very, very betting thing. But as the years have gone by in the FA Cup, the interest in it is diminished. Nobody cares about it. There isn't any money in it anymore. Money in sport is all about money. And they get the big money in the Champions League, get money in the Premier League. And a lot of teams don't really take this cup competition seriously. But we have three matches tonight involving teams across the country. And the first up is Sheffield United, who host Cardiff. Sheffield United are currently minus 109 with Bet Rivers. Cardiff are plus 310. The tie here is plus 245. Everton from the Premier League are minus $5. And Peterborough from League One are plus 11.50 with the tie at $6. And we also have Fulham, another team in the Premier League. They are minus 360 at home to Watford, who are $9, and the tie at plus 480. Now, this is a competition where team news is everything. You cannot be betting a side at minus $5, minus 360 in this competition without seeing the teams. And the first match, Sheffield United Cardiff, is a match that I don't know if you have it in American sports, but I'm telling you now, both of these teams do not want to win this cup match. They have no interest in winning this match whatsoever. Sheffield United are trying to get promotion to the Premier League. Cardiff are fighting off relegation. So these two sides, honestly, if they could both lose, I think they'd take a loss now, but none of them can lose. I think it's going to be a match that they're going to put out a second string side. And if you are contemplating having a bet on this one, you've got to be very, very, very brave or very, very desperate. So that one there is a swerve for me. If you look at it, it's one that you just can't really have a bet on. If you look at Sheffield United at home, they've only lost once in their last 12, and Cardiff on the road have only won once in the last 13. So you would look at minus 109 and think to yourself, well, that's an absolute certainty. But when you break it down, neither of these sides want to be in this competition. So my advice for anybody looking at that match is to avoid it. The next match we have is Everton against Peterborough. Look at this match here. It's a contrasting styles. Everton, a side that do not score many goals, but they're 2 leagues above Peterborough. So they're a Premier League side. Peterborough, a League One side. 11 of the last 13 Everton games under 2.5 goals is cashed. 9 of their last 10, both teams have scored. It's been a no. But in Peterborough games in League One, there's been loads of action. But the big talking point about this, I don't know if it's ever happened in American sports. I'll ask you a question on this. But there could be a father and son up against each other tonight. Ashley Young, who plays for Everton, he's 39. And his 18-year-old son, Tyler Young, is playing for Peterborough. Now, have you ever seen that in US sports?
No, I mean, we obviously saw that with LeBron recently being a teammate and sort of orchestrating his son's arrival to the Lakers and things like that. That is remarkable. In baseball back in the day with the Griffeys, but, given the longevity now of certain players, quarterbacks in the NFL playing into their 40s and things along those lines, maybe we do see that more often, but that is a pretty cool angle for sure.
That is a pretty cool angle, and I'm worried about where Ashley Young's wife and Tyler Young's mother's going to choose. Who's she going to decide to support? Got some messages coming in from Byron. Sheffield United under 2.5 goals is plus 290. That does look a good bet on paper, Byron, but does Sheffield United want to win this match? I just don't believe they're going to really want to win it. I think they're going to put out the kids for sure tonight, and you might get that price might drift as well. Ming Jung said Fulham must take this competition seriously. What do you think? Well, we're going to come on to the Fulham match next up. I think they will take this serious, and if you follow us on Instagram, you will see that because we win soccer handicappers all have a pick on the FA Cup for this season, and one of them, I'm not going to say who, but one of them has gone for Fulham at 40-1 to win the competition. So he is hoping that will be the bet. The Sheffield United game as well, as I said, it's a difficult one. A draw in the Sheffield United game seems decent. Well, it does. I always like the draw when it's one of the biggest price of all 3 outcomes. And at plus 310 tonight, it is the biggest price of all 3 outcomes, and perhaps probably the most likely, given that both sides do not really want to progress through to the next round because they've got bigger things on their plate domestically in the Championship. Well, we're here for bets. We didn't have any 2 bets on those first 2 matches, but I do have a bet on the final match here, Fulham against Watford. As I said there, Fulham are one of the betting weekly bet because we win handicappers picks to win the FA Cup at 40-1. And they're a heavy favourite against Watford here, Doug. They're minus 360. Now, Watford are a side below Fulham. Fulham are in the Premier League. Watford are in the Championship. But the one thing that these 2 sides do, they contribute lots and lots of goals. And you can see the total goal line is 3.5, which means that, usually traditionally it's a 2.5 game. 3.5 is a high number. But under is minus 3.5 is minus 182. Over is 145. 6 of the last 8 Fulham matches have been draws. Last 7 Watford matches, both teams have scored yes. 8 of the last 9 Fulham matches, both teams have scored has been a yes. If you look at Fulham matches, in 4 of their last home matches, they've been minus money favourites, and they've only won once. They've let you down as minus money favourites. They're minus money favourites tonight at minus 360. But my bet here tonight, and my only bet on the FA Cup this evening, is both teams to score in Fulham v Watford. I think that's a really nice bet with Bet Rivers. Currently minus 117. If you want to have a bet on the that both teams to score market, that is the price you'll get on the Bet Rivers app and on the website. Anything on Madrid today, Ian? Well, hang on a minute, because the next match we're up is the Real Madrid match, and we're going to be talking about that before we move on to Doug's talking about the likelihood and the chances on the NFL this year on the Super Bowl. So let's have a look at the Super Cup over in this is in Saudi. So we had the show yesterday, Doug, where we had Barcelona in action. And this is a competition that the Saudis want the best teams to play. And obviously, it compete in the final. Yesterday, Barcelona won their match. And today, Real Madrid are minus 335, and that will be the final in Saudi. They want that final. This is the final they want, and it's no reason, you can't really not bet Real Madrid here at minus 335. The only one thing I would say for you, the last 4 matches between these two sides, under 2.5 goals has cashed. It was 1-1 early in the season. We saw last night a match between Barcelona and who did they play? Bilbao, and under 2.5 goals cashed as well. So I think the under 2.5 here, it's around about minus 110 under 2.5 goals. I think this one here will be another unders match like we saw last night, but it will set up the final between Real Madrid and Barcelona. It's exactly what the Saudis want over in Saudi, and I think they will get it. So that is the football action. Just covered quick fire 4 matches we've gone through there, 3 in the FA Cup, 1 in Spain. But we're going to move on to what Doug is here for. He's here to tell us all about the NFL. He tells us what the best bets are on the playoff weekend. He's here to tell us where we should go on the Super Bowl itself. But before we do that, Doug, there's a lot of people who watch this show from all around the world. We've got a lot of people in Europe. We have a lot of African followers, lots of people all over the place. Obviously, the American audience will know you from ESPN. You're the former betting guru there. But tell us a little bit about yourself and your betting. I mean, looking at your Twitter page, the amount of competitions you've won on this betting malarkey, it's quite impressive.
Yeah, things have broken right in recent years, and it's just it's a skill and a craft, like we all know, and it takes years to evolve. And I've been doing this, frankly, 30 years if it goes back to high school and stuff. So I grew up the youngest of 5 brothers, and sports very much predominant in the house. I always joke that I never watched cartoons growing up because I would wake up and I never had control of the remote control. So I would always have to just watch sports instead of cartoons at a young age. But I just loved sports my whole life, got into sort of the math and the numbers of it all in high school and things like that, understood point spreads and things along those lines. And then I launched a career in the UK. It's called Presenters, right? So I was a host. I was a TV anchor for sports throughout my career. And I lived in Las Vegas in 2005, so 20 years ago. And that's when I first sort of cut my teeth into really understanding the market and everything there is, the nuances of sports betting, and talked to a lot of odds makers, professional bettors, really started to understand everything about it and sort of got my PhD in it and evolved and things like that. Then I went to ESPN and was a conventional presenter there for a while. And then once things started to trend in the legalization world in the US, and in 2018, I believe is the year, I was able to pivot within ESPN and become the host of the show, and was up there for a while, and all while maintaining my connections out here in Las Vegas because I'm a bachelor. So I respect everyone who's married with kids and all that. It's a full-time job on top of their full-time job. But I just have that extra time, right? So I'm able to devote it and really just all in on betting, and, pivoted, launched my own venture with some colleagues and things like that called Only Players. And we have our own app. So we have a lot of information, a lot of videos. I share all my plays on there in game. So I'm a big into the live betting market. That's sort of one of my specialties. But as you alluded to, Nigel, I've done pretty well in some contests. So each year there's been sort of a big hit. So a couple years ago, I did well in the college football contest at William Hill. So 2 top 5 finishes. So cashed over 50,000 in that. That was in 2022. And then last year did well in Circa Million and the Super Contest here in Las Vegas, tied for 14th. So I had one of the big jumbo checks. It's always a dream of mine to get one of those. And this past year, I finished 12 games above 500 Circa Million. Didn't cash, but been doing well in some other podcasts, up 33 units through my site, onlyplayers.com, in terms of documented. Like, that's where I want everything transparent. That's not the case out here in the States. A lot of people, it's almost turned into sort of sports talk radio, but with betting. And people talk about, oh, I like this, but people really aren't qualified. So hopefully it evolves. The industry evolves, kind of like the stock market channels, the networks that have a really serious approach. Because I think, like yourself, there are people who are experienced in this that deserve to be recognized and have credibility, and should be, that should be put to the forefront, not just sort of, the joke of scammy cappers, or just, people that are kind of fake about it. So that's where I'm trying to go in the industry. And I appreciate someone like yourself bringing me on and being a part of this, just because I think there is an acumen and a skill set that should be We don't have the validation like, oh, played X amount of years in the NFL, or played European soccer, or won a World Cup with this country. Like, there's just no way to, other than the contest finishes, there's no way to certify someone's credibility. So I hope over time we continue to evolve in the States in terms of people that are allowed to come on air and talk about things in certain ways.
Well, welcome along. You're a great asset to us. A couple of quotes here, a couple of messages here. We've got Billy Franklin. Doug is the best. You've got a big fan already from Billy Franklin. So Billy Franklin and Doug said the check is in the post. We've got, what else have we got here? We've got, please, Mr. Doug Kezirian, I want to work with you, sir. I'm from Nigeria. How can we get in touch? Well, you're not one of those princes who send you them emails from Nigeria once the princes. So be very careful there, Doug. But you've got a following already before we've even started here. Just one word of caution before we go on with the winning check. The big checks you get. You get them big checks. You stand there, the photographer takes the check. I have a friend of mine who was a sports star in the UK. He was a snooker player. I don't know if you like billiards. It's Paul, snooker player. And in 1978, he won the second biggest ever tournament. 1978, he won the second biggest ever snooker tournament, and he stood there with this big check live on the television, and his best friend came with him, and he was delighted he won the money, tapped him on the shoulder and said to him, "You'll never work again." And he's now 77 and he's still grafting. So be careful of those big checks. They may look appealing, but you're still
over there. Here, there it is. On the bookshelf.
There's the check. No, he's got so much money he hasn't even cashed it. There you go.
Right.
There you go. Let's move on to the Super Bowl. That's what we're here for. Looking at the Super Bowl winner. It's an ideal time to get involved in the Super Bowl futures, obviously now with the wildcard weekend. And these are the latest prices with Bet Rivers. Detroit Lions ahead in the market at $3. Kansas City Chiefs, the defending champions, plus 325. The Ravens at 6. Bills at 6. Eagles 7, 16 for Minnesota Vikings, 20 Green Bay Packers. And then we go into some big prices on the others. What's your future? What kind of future? You've got any futures at the moment that are looking quite good, or is that not really that you're more into the individual match betting?
I haven't picked off any team, I should say. I have a really good portfolio right now in the awards market, right? I have Josh Allen MVP, Sam Darnold comeback player of the year, Kevin O'Connell coach of the year. I think those are pretty solid. But in terms of the teams, I haven't had a great sort of like stocking of the portfolio. I really thought the AFC was top heavy and very predictive, like from week 5 on. We kind of know it's going to be the Chiefs, Ravens, or Bills. We kind of knew that really early on. In fact, some of these divisions were clinched super early. So I didn't see a ton of value. And, the Chiefs were well on their way to getting the 1 seed. And there's such an advantage when there's 3 teams competing, because the Ravens and the Bills have to face each other in round 2. And then the next week go to Arrowhead. I think the Chiefs have a nice path. Now, that doesn't mean it's definitely going to win and they're going to get to the Super Bowl, but it's really hard to think things aren't going to break the Chiefs' way. I can see Baltimore going into Arrowhead, but that means they would have to have won at Buffalo and then at Kansas City. And that's even surviving Pittsburgh, who always gives them problems this year. So we'll see how that all plays out. So I just don't know if there's a ton of value in that regard in terms of the futures. I haven't pulled the trigger this week, but honestly, like Chiefs around plus 150, things like that to win the AFC is really tempting given everything that's going on in the AFC, things along those lines. But that's not really fun to bet. So I'm not like in a rush to bet that. It is plus 130 at Bet Rivers, so keep that in mind. And then in terms of the NFC, I think the Bucs have a huge upside. At their best, they have tons of weapons. The defense is competent enough with Todd Bowles pulling the strings. So there is something that's somewhat interesting with the Bucs, 30-1 to win the conference. I would probably err on the side of 31 to win the Super Bowl. I would err on the side for the conference at 12-1, so plus 1,200. But again, that's only because the Lions are banged up. The Eagles have question marks with Jalen Hurts coming off his injury and the concussion. There's some rust there. And I think the NFC is a little more wide open and less predictive than the NFC. I do think the Lions are the team to beat, particularly at home. But at some point, like those injuries should show up on defense. And I would say I'm a little bit less. I think we're more likely to see some upsets in the NFC than the AFC per se.
Some quotes here. Ken Peacock says I have the Chiefs at 11-1. So Ken's got a nice future there. Washington, are they a sleeper from Paul Laguna, who's actually from Washington, so I can understand why he's saying that.
I
And
think
Ken
so. I think so. The
Well, you gotta
upside's there.
Yeah, Ken has said no. They're not Washington are not a sleeper. So Doug and Ken disagreeing there. Reese has said I like the Lambs as a sleeper. Ken also obviously likes Lions, Eagles, NFC, and Ravens, Chiefs, and the Bills for the AFC. I'll give you some liabilities with Bet Rivers. Current liabilities: Detroit Lions are the biggest liability on the money on the Super Bowl market, future market. Pittsburgh Steelers. Bet Rivers are very, very popular, very have a big presence in Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh Steelers are the second liability. Philadelphia Eagles, Kansas City Chiefs the fourth, Baltimore Ravens the fifth, and Buffalo Bills. They're the worst 6 results for the Bet Rivers Sportsbook on the Super Bowl future markets. The largest percentage of futures handles is the Chiefs. 25.2% of all the handle is on the Chiefs, and they have 22.4% of the tickets as well. And that is second to that is the Lions. The Lions and the Chiefs dominate 40%, over 45, almost 45% of the handle, and almost 40% of the tickets. So, judging by the current prices, it's not looking a great position for Bet Rivers at the moment with the Lions and Pittsburgh Steelers. Lions and the Chiefs dominating the future market. Doug, I know you've just gone through their market. Then you haven't. You said you concentrate stuff. But if I was going to give you a $50 free bet and said, right, Doug, I've got $50 free bet with Bet Rivers. I want you to invest it for me, but we've got to have it we've got to have it this weekend on the winner of the Super Bowl. Where are we going?
So a futures play that has to occur this weekend.
Yeah,
I would say the Bills at plus 600 to win it all.
right.
Only one road game potentially, right? And that's at Arrowhead. I do think things could break their way in that regard because Josh Allen, it's almost addition by subtraction, losing, chirpy wide receivers and just having the wide range of weapons on offense, and they can, not having to feed a certain wide receivers made defenses really guessing, and they're going to be favored at home next week against Baltimore unless something drastic happens. I do like the Ravens a lot. That's the problem. Lamar Jackson's been fantastic. I think adding Derrick Henry. I honestly think beating the Ravens at home will be more difficult than beating the Chiefs in Arrowhead. I really do. If they can get past Baltimore next week, I like the Bills to take care of their business against Denver this weekend. And I would say because of the payout, I would say Buffalo at plus 600, and hopefully it ends a long drought and a starvation for their loyal fan base.
Somebody said to me a couple of years ago, following one, he said, if the Bills got to the Super Bowl, I'll take you there, Nigel. And that was about 2 years ago. I think they had a chance about 2 years ago. And I went, okay, no problem. Hopefully the offer's still there and we can. Where is the Super Bowl this year? I don't know where it is. Where is it?
New Orleans.
Oh, okay, lovely. I've always fancied going to New Orleans. So if anyone wants to take me, I'm more than Bet Rivers. If you're watching, the bosses want to take me over to the Super Bowl, it'd be lovely to be there. I've got some questions here. Paul Laguna says he likes the Bills. I like that. Doug says another someone likes to comment there. Reese Conrad said head coaching is critical in the playoffs, and we're going to come on to the playoffs now. Look at the playoffs here. And Reese also said McVay is a top coach. So coaching is critical. The betting is critical. Weather, I can imagine, being quite critical. Some of these times across the country, very different weather conditions, across here. Whenever they come to the English over to Wembley, I always go under on the points because it's always pouring with rain. I think it's one of the NFL bets I always have with the weather over here in England. We have 6 playoff matches this weekend, and we're going to start with the LA Chargers at the Houston Texans. I think the best thing to do here, Doug, is if you just go through whatever you like and go through the games bit by bit, and if anyone's got any comment, we'll just fire away.
Yeah. So in a vacuum, I'm not sure who I would like, but Texans have been pretty decent at home this year, and honestly, I do think the Chargers, with what's going on in their home lives in LA, a lot of the players, this is life threatening for so many people and ravaged. So we saw the Clippers play a game last night, get blown out. Post-game comments said that their minds are elsewhere with what's going on. The LA Kings and the NHL had their game canceled. We'll see what happens with the Lakers games tonight. But I just can't imagine the Chargers are preparing the right way or the normal way this week, given everything that's going on in the LA area. And I don't want to seem insensitive discussing the betting angles of this, but this is the human element that's part of this. So I would want no part of the Chargers in that game. I do have the Texans on a teaser plus 8.5. I didn't think the market would move to 3. I wonder if there's going to be some correction there. But I would just remind people the Texans were home underdogs last year in the first round of the playoffs, and that did not materialize well. They won outright. So something to keep in mind. Texans have been very good as a home team in that. I like the Ravens in this spot in the first half. Pittsburgh's been a really poor team in the first half this season. And, they've lost a few games in a row. Things are not breaking right. But I think the Ravens come out and are potent, and they've been such a juggernaut all season. I think this is a really good opportunity to lay 6.5 for the Ravens in the first half. I'd also keep an eye on a prop bet. Remember, we all know that the narrative and the embarrassment last year when Pittsburgh did not run the ball at all, even though that was their bread and butter. And they just unraveled and threw too much. And that was what did them in against the Chiefs. So I would keep that in mind. So maybe Lamar Jackson under passing yards, just because I do think how things ended last year in the postseason, I think the Ravens are going to just really be committed to the run in this regard. So maybe there's some line value. And I think they're going to have a lead. Like I said, with the first half lead, they're going to want to protect it. And while Jackson's been awesome this year and guys are wide open, I do think under the passing yards is probably the way to go for that game. I like the Bills. I think they're going to roll the Broncos. Denver's a team that has done really well this year in a lot of ways, surpassing expectations, but a lot of their wins have been kind of phony. It was a great win at Tampa. That was their first win of the year in week 3, but they caught the Bucs in a great spot, coming off a huge win at Detroit. All the comments afterwards, the Bucs players were conceding they weren't really prepared, blah, 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 things like that. So I think the Denver is they've been a little shaky all year. I think this is a sort of a reality check, so to speak. So I think the Bills roll them. So I would lay the points with the Bills. If you can find 8.5 and tease it down, that's really the best way to go about it in my eyes. In terms of the rest of the weekend, there's nothing that jumps out. I mean, I got to play the Vikings on Monday night. Again, money line there for me at -115. Again, what's going on with the Rams? They may move the game to Arizona. That's the NFL announced today. I just don't know how players in that area are dealing with such an extreme situation. And it's really, really big. A lot of times, even with news coverage 24 hours, you see things and you still get desensitized to certain situations. But this is life changing for so many residents of Los Angeles area. And we've seen players and coaches really affected by this. So I would imagine the Vikings, and I think they play well from ahead. And with the Rams being such slow starters, I'm on the Vikings in that money line in that game. And, even the first quarter, the Rams are the second worst team in terms of points scored in the first quarter all year. So ranking 31st. They're just really slow starters. I don't know what's up with that, but I think the Vikings do get it. So I like the money line in the first quarter in that game. I'm passing on the other two games, the Packers, Eagles, and then Commanders, Bucks. I just think there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of variance. My gut tells me the Packers cover, but I don't like this Packers team. They've really been bad against winning teams all season. I just wonder about Jalen Hurts off the injury. I maybe a second half play. You can shake off the rust. I'm just not ready to fire just yet going into that game. And the Commanders, Bucks, if this were a regular season game, I would bet the over 50 right away. But because it's the playoffs, coaches may be conservative. There's just players might be tight. But I do lean to the over in that Bucks Commanders game. I think that's I think that's the only way I can play it. This has all the makings of 34-24, stuff like that.
Yeah, a couple of messages on the group, couple of the chat. Reese says, we're talking about obviously we have to talk about the betting perspective here, what's going on in Los Angeles. But Reese says, I believe that's a more reason to bet LA teams rather than to oppose them. So I suppose that's how you think. I remember, I'm a tennis man. I remember Novak Djokovic many years ago had a family tragedy and the market opposed him. But it spurred him on, and he went on and won the tournament. I know he's Novak Djokovic; he was number one in the world, but he went through the emotions and he went on and won the tournament. So sometimes in betting, we are what's going on is terrible. What we're witnessing, we are talking about a betting show. Sometimes when human things, it's funny how it happens to each individual, how each individual feels about it. So with a team sport, I don't know, it's different to an individual sport, but Reese is coming from a different perspective.
So I understand that line of thinking for sure. And I think it applies in certain situations. I just like when there is tragedy and loss and things along those lines where it's purely emotional. But in this case, it's logistical as much as anything. It's the unknown. It's something that's still going on. So when their families and especially with the Chargers on the road, right? It's not a sort of galvanizing moment that a loss, an emotional loss, whether it be a teammate or things like that. This is more just distractions and focus all week, right? So in the NFL, you're putting in game plans throughout the week and implementing certain procedural and protocol on, hey, on third and medium, we're going to be in this defense. We're adding plays to the playbook. That's scouting. It's film sessions. It's all these things that go into sort of the mindset. I remember talking to guys at ESPN who used to play in the NFL. Playoff week is way different than the regular season week. We all remember that Peyton Manning Sports Illustrated cover where he's in the hot tub or ice bath with one ankle and he's wearing a helmet, watching an iPad and going through stuff midweek. Like he treated a playoff game a regular season game like a playoff game all week. But the playoffs are just all in. There's usually like 3 guys who would probably miss the game if it was a regular season game, but they're going to play through injury. Guys are in the training facility early, all that stuff all week, all hands on deck, so to speak. It's just all in all the time. And I just don't know again, you're worried about like your family having to be displaced and they're spreading like this weekend. Fortunately, this morning, I should say, there was a lift to evacuation in Hollywood Hills, but it started out in the Malibu and the Palisades, and it's completely gone along the coast. But it's not more inland, and there's other pockets of the city. So people don't know with the winds where they're going to take it next. Like within a day or so, it might be their neighborhood, or just envisioning a player's own thought process. So I understand the comment of, hey, sometimes it can rally and teams can play with passion and inspiration. But I think this is more of the unknown, something that's weighing on players because of their families and everything like that. So I just think the weight of the situation and the fact that it's ongoing is more of a distraction than it is a galvanizing component.
Yeah, we just changing the subject slightly. We've got some breaking news coming out that Everton, who are playing football tonight in the FA Cup, the match I told you about, the father and the son, they've just sacked their manager, Sean Dyche, the manager of Everton, has been sacked. Rumours are that Jose Mourinho is in the running to take the job. He's going to make a return back to the Premier League. But tonight they go into a match without a manager. So that may have an effect on the betting on the big soccer game tonight between Everton and Peterborough. Brian has come on straight away and said, get on Peterborough too while you can, -125 or -175. Just shows you betting, doesn't it, Doug? I mean, we know we've got a man who's just lost his job, and the first thing is everyone's get on the other side at +175 for 102. It won't last. It just shows you how we are. But that might affect the betting tonight. The game between Everton and Peterborough. The Everton manager, Sean Dyche, has been sacked, and there is rumours around here in the UK that Jose Mourinho is the man who is considered the guy to take over at Goodison Park. So I'll just give you some, before we move on from the NFL, just give you some weekend splits in the games, the Chargers and the Mexicans. 82% of the money and 74% of the tickets are on the Chargers. So that's a big move. 90% of the money and 86% of the tickets on the Ravens in the Steelers-Ravens games. 92% of money and 88% of tickets on the Bills match, in the Bills-Broncos match. 76% of money and 88% of tickets on the Eagles and the Packers-Eagles. It's a 50-50 call in the Commanders-Buccaneers. 55% of the money and 53% tickets on the Bucks. And the Vikings and the Rams, money, 88% money and 64% tickets on the Vikings. So a lot of money around for certain teams, but the one they can't really make their mind up is the Commanders and the Buccaneers match. It seems to be a pick-em match. Remember, there are some live streams tonight, including Dundee v Rangers on the Bet River site. A lot of people have mentioned on the comments there, Dundee and Rangers to the match. My views on that, I think there'll be goals. I expect Rangers to score the majority of them, and I think they will win, and I expect them to get more than 2.5 goals on their own. I fancy Rangers getting a few goals in that match. We also have streaming on the Belgium match tonight, a couple of games in the Greek Cup, and we also have the tennis, which we're going to come on to in 1 second. Before we move on to the tennis, Doug, there's also a big night of college football, big weekend of college football. Is there anything else you like that with Bet Rivers that you've seen on the website that's caught your attention?
Yeah, I liked a few plays last week, or last round, but tonight's a coin flip. I understand both sides. I think it's going to come down to the wire. So I actually teased Penn State to 7.5 when it was 1.5 in favor of Notre Dame. I think, it's kind of an NFL game with an over-under at 45. I think it's okay to tease a college game like this with this magnitude, and I think it's going to play out like an NFL game where they're going to win by 3 or 7, something like that. The over-under has moved as Byron chimes in. He likes the under. Probably. I lean to the under, even though the market's moved a little bit. I still think it's going to be an under type vibe. I don't believe in Notre Dame's quarterback that much. I think he's the right sort of game manager, makes a play here and there. I think Penn State their upside is higher than Notre Dame's, but I've been backing the Irish for a lot this season. I really like them. I believed in them. I think this is a total coin flip game. I really do think it comes down to the final possession. I think the Notre Dame win over Georgia was just weird. I mean, they scored, 10 points, right? 2 touchdowns in in a minute. And outside of that, it was a kind of a rock fight of a game. So that's why I'll kind of pass. But overall, I think Ohio State wins the national championship. So right now, you can just bet the future. I don't want to lay the points against Texas because I just think the market's corrected too much. I'm just not going to sort of be late on the steam and pay the tax. But I do like Ohio State to win the title. And, just bet the future. It's minus money and go from there. I just think that's the right way to play. I think they learned their lesson against Michigan when they played really poorly. So minus 155 is getting a little pricey at Bet Rivers, but I think that's the right play because they obviously know Penn State well. And I just think they have too much firepower for Notre Dame. And with college football, especially when you have young quarterbacks, the standout wide receiver, Jeremiah Smith for the Buckeyes, he's not a freshman anymore, right? This juncture of the season, end of the year, and and players are allowed to get better, right? So with Chip Kelly, he's gotten better. He made mistakes calling plays against Michigan, and then he's opened up the playbook. And Will Howard's playing well, hasn't been sacked in 5 straight games. Everything's clicking for the Buckeyes, and they're going to make Texas one-dimensional. And I just think Texas, with their quarterback Quinn Ewers, he's hurt. He's got an ankle injury. They'll bring in maybe Arch Manning, but at times in the goal line package, things like that. I just think the Texas defense got exposed a little bit, and I think Ohio State should be able to exploit that and then be the much better team in the national championship game.
A lot of people agreeing with what you're saying, Doug. Kirk Schreier says sharp capper. Brian Murrell says Doug is right. Turnovers determine this result. And finally, Dave Clark has asked for a bit of advice. Says, Doug, please tell me this parlay hits Ohio State, Ravens, and the Bills all on the money line.
It should hit. It should definitely hit. I would say, I just touted Ohio State. I mean, remember, these are college kids, things like that. Texas, the look-ahead line against Ohio State was the Longhorns -2. Now, that doesn't mean it's the gospel, and there's a market correction, things like that, more data points. But I know really sharp guys who are betting +6.5 and +6. I am not. I don't believe that Texas, is definitely the right side. But there is, of those 3, I could see a path of Texas winning that game. But I don't see the Ravens or Bills losing this weekend. I really don't. I mean, there's a chance the Steelers just muck it up and get under the skin of Baltimore like they always do and win the wonky game. But for the most part, for example, I'm playing the Ravens and Bills in a money line parlay, and it's about -200. So I'd rather do that than add the Ohio State element to the money line to make it even. But like I said, I just got done saying I like Ohio State to win it all. I'm very confident in Ohio State winning the next round if they get past Texas. And I do think they get past Texas, but I think the Longhorns have the potential because a defensive game plan could stymie the Buckeyes.
That parlay plays +105, as Paul Laguna's pointed out there. If you are having that parlay and it does cash, please tag your bet slips with Bet Rivers to our social page. We'll highlight that Doug was hitting the parlays, and we're putting up the parlays on the show. Dave's parlay pays +80. Kirk has asked me, Nigel, what do you think of the Watford match? Both teams to score. Well, probably at the top of the show, Kirk, that was my only bet tonight in the FA Cup. I've gone for both teams to score in the match against Fulham. I think it's the best bet on the night, and it's -117 with Bet Rivers. I'm just going to give you some in-house specials with Bet Rivers. Which ones of these do you like the sound of, Doug? Let me know what you think. Over 275 and a half total points scored in NFL wildcard games, minus 114. Yes or no?
Ooh, I think they call that the grand salami, right? I'm just processing. I would bet under on that.
Okay,
And I think for me, it's a floor and ceiling, right? So, like, while I like the over in the Bucks Commanders game, I don't think these games are going to go 20 points over. But I do think some of them could go 20 points under. I really do think there could be just a total rock fight in one of these games, like Eagles Packers. I wouldn't be shocked if it was like 16-10 or something like that. And then you just have to offset it. So I think the floor, I typically bet unders anyway. I know it's no fun and all that stuff.
You're my kind of guy, Doug. Welcome to the team. You're my kind of guy.
Well, what I always say, as soon as the game starts, you're winning, right? You have a winning ticket majority of the game. You just got to sweat out some stuff at the end. Even at halftime, you're still live. Maybe not soccer because you can go over in the first half, but in an NFL game, they might have a 30-point first half and you're still live on the under. So I'm okay. I would say under just because I think if it just takes one game to really skew the results, because I think these games are more often if they're more likely to go way under than way over.
We've got Penn State to reach national championships and the Eagles to reach the Super Bowl, plus 815.
What was the first team with the Eagles? What was
Penn State to reach the national championship and Eagles to reach the Super Bowl, plus 815.
All right. So yeah, I mean, obviously Penn State's in a coin flip game. They're +1 tonight. So to reach the national championship game and then the Eagles, I can see that. I can for sure see that. I like this Penn State team. To be honest, the game that changed my opinion of them is the game they lost in the Big Ten title game, where they were down double digits and then came back. And I think that showed me something. They were able to punch back against a fast Oregon team, and they showed me something on offense that I didn't think they had in them. They were a team that has a good offense, but not a dynamic offense. And I've seen aspects where they have shown some dynamic. Obviously, their tight end's awesome, but I now believe in this offense, and I've believed in the defense all year. And this Franklin, James Franklin, big game James, is a kind of a tongue in cheek. He's a good coach. He's just, he got criticized a lot because he had among the 3 highest salaries outside of Saban and Jim Harbaugh, and he's not won the national championship. But aside from that, he is still a good coach, and the team has evolved. And I think he's got sort of a puncher's chance, right? It's not a best of 7 series. But I think he's got a shot. I think Penn State, they're understandably the long shot here of the 4 teams remaining, but I think they're live here. So I would have no problem, if a guy wanted to back Penn State to win this game or even, to win it all.
We've got 2 other specials, house specials. Kylian Mbappe to score and Real Madrid to beat Mallorca tonight at plus 108. I like that. I've said earlier, I think the Real Madrid will win. And the Saudis want the big names to perform, and Kylian Mbappe is the biggest name of all. So I like that. And on the tennis, which we're going to come on to next, any other player than Carlos Alcaraz or Yannick Sinner to win the Australian Open at plus 170. I think I can't have Alcaraz at all. I think Sinner's the man to beat, but I do think we might get a shock winner. You're going to get one this tournament or the US Open, and we're going to have that covered for you tomorrow on Betting Weekly Game Bet Match with myself and Sean Calvert, breaking down the tournament futures and the best bets on round 1 and also on the women's draw with myself and Roy Giovanni. So all that is to come, but there is some tennis action going on at the moment in the countdown to the Australian Open over in Australia and in New Zealand. And we've reached the semi-final stage. We're going to give you quickly a run through of the betting for tonight's action with Bet Rivers, starting in the ATP Tour event in Adelaide. And then this tournament starts tonight at 12:30 Eastern time tomorrow morning. So it's a late start. Tommy Paul, the American, is the favourite, plus 150. Felix Auger-Aliassime is 2. Sebastian Korda, 275. And Mimir Kekmanovic is plus 350. Looking on the money line on the matches there, I quite like both underdogs, actually. I think Felix has got a chance. He leads 1-0 in the head-to-head against Tommy Paul at plus 120. And I quite like Sebastian Korda, plus 118. He's had the luxury of having a bye. His opponent last night, Kokkinakis, the local lad in Adelaide, pulled out before the match had started. He didn't have to play. So he's got the advantage of playing a very tired Kekmanovic who's played a lot of tennis. So I quite like Sebastian Corder there at -118, and also like Felix Auger-Aliassime at +120. We go across to Auckland, and we have 4 men in action at the quarterfinal stage there. Gael Monfils +175. Basha Veredi is $2. Borges is +250, and Zuzi Bergs at +275. Very interesting matchup, Monfils against Basha Veredi. Monfils is 39. Basha Veredi is 19. Monfils is the favourite at -134 with Bet Rivers, and I think he will win this match. And I tell you why, because the young American Basha Veredi has just been drawn in the first round of the Australian Open against none other than Novak Djokovic. So I don't think he's going to really be too interested in this match, given that he's going to play Novak Djokovic in 48 hours' time. Nuno Borges is -129. Zizou Bergs at +104. I quite like Bergs at +104. Moving on to the women's event, the WTA in Adelaide. Jessica Pegler is the favourite, the American number 2. She's +130. Madison Keys, another American player, is +140. Putnet Saver is +550, and Samsonova at 650. I gave Samsonova yesterday as my bet of the day on the tennis, and she obliged at +110. I also said she was a bet to win the tournament at $9. She's now down to 650. She has a tough match against Madison Keys, an opponent that has played her twice and beat her twice. These, though, are 2 of the biggest women's servers in the game. They're the biggest servers in the business. 10:30 p.m. Eastern time they start, and that over 21.5 games at -110 or -115 is a cracking bet. That should be higher. I think there should be 22.5, a game higher than that at the same price. And I think Keys Samsonova is going to be a very, very long one. The last time they played here, it was 6-3, 3-6, 6-3. So the game's produced 27 games. So over 21 is my best bet on the women's match. And finally, in Hobart, Mertens +210, Avansayan +260, Joint 275, and McCartney Kesler at +320. And on those markets, I got quite a fancy for Joint. I think Joint's playing very, very well at the moment. And I think Elise Merton, coming towards the end of her career, is quite vulnerable. But my official plays for today, if you're having the action today, my only soccer play is both teams to score in the match between Watford and Fulham, which is -117 with Bet Rivers. And I'm going to go for over 21.5 games in the Keys match. I think that is the best bet of the night. I think it's a game too low. I think it should be 22.5. And to get -115 with 2 of the biggest servers in the women's game on what is a very, very quick court, very, very fast conditions, weather's perfect, I think they're the best bets of the day. A couple more quotes. Brian, again, over in the Keys match. I agree with you, Nigel. Duncan Evans, Monfils is rolling back the years this week. He is rolling back the years, but he's got to do it one more time against a guy he's 20 years older than. So we started the show talking about a football match where a father and son are in action, and we're ending the show with a tennis match on the ATP Tour where there's a 20-year age gap between the 2 players. Make sure you follow us on our socials at Because We've Been. Please subscribe to the channel. We're approaching 7,000 subscribers. I said yesterday we really like to hit that before the Australian Open, so we've only got about 72 hours before we can get the 7,000. So with your help, we can do it. Amazingly, Doug, on these shows, we do these shows every day. 50% of the people do not press that subscribe button. Why not? Why don't they do it? What you've got to do is press the subscribe button.
Well, you spoil us, Nigel. You spoiled the world. Everyone's just on a take, and they're still going to get it. I think what I've picked up on another podcast, one of my colleagues gives out as one of his favorite plays, just verbally. If people subscribe, he dangles the carrot. So if we reach enough people subscribing or liking, because he thinks people just fast forward to the end and look at the graphics and just stuff like that. So he wants to dangle the carrot to just do the audio version. But it's to get people to, incentivize them, right? Incentivize people to do the liking and the subscribing, and we'll give out more plays accordingly.
And also, there will be exclusive content to subscribers. I think that's the plan coming very soon. So it's very, very important to hit that subscribe button, because you will miss out on the big nights of the Champions League that are coming up and the other big sporting events that are approaching as the year continues in 2025. That's it for today. Doug, honestly, the time has flown by. I said we'll only be 40 minutes. We've been 50 minutes. It's been great having you on. I've really, really enjoyed the last almost hour chatting to you. I've learned a little bit about American football and betting. I love the angles you provided here. I think you're going to be a great addition to the team, and everyone can learn a little bit, and hopefully we can all profit together. So thank you very much for coming on.
Really appreciate it, Nigel. Obviously been a fan from afar for a while, so it's good to join the team. And I thank to everyone in the chat with all such kind comments. That warms the heart, especially getting the day started on the right foot. So psyched to be on board. Hopefully the insight materializes accordingly this weekend. And, you're only as good as your last weekend of betting, right? But really psyched to be joining you guys. And you're right, it did flow by.
Yep, and Doug will be joining us again later on in this month, and also be back with the build up to the Super Bowl in February as well. Tomorrow, I think it's Steve Wiss and Simon Holden giving you all the betting action for a Friday show, looking ahead to the soccer action that evening, a bit more tennis, and previewing the big FA Cup matches across the weekend. Everton this evening go into a big match without their manager. The special one is coming, Everton fans, and the special one is coming tomorrow. Simon Holden is back. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks to Doug. Take care and all the best for your bets.